Hello everyone, good evening and welcome to this next topic that we are going to take up in our series of webinars. I am Madhur Kathuria, your host for today, and I hope you have benefited from our previous webinars which have been on various topics around agility and the agile philosophy, and we'll continue to bring you more and more topics. So today, after we complete the webinar, I'm also going to open our chat board to give you an option to also ask us for next topics that you'd like to listen on. So meanwhile, let's get started with our topic for today, which is appraisals and feedback system in an agile world. And as we get started, just to set a few rules of the game, we would be taking questions through the questions pane. So in case you have any questions, do put it on the questions pane on the right hand side of your screen, and I'll be answering them as we go along. In case you have any specific questions also, you can also put it in the chat window so that I can take those chats later. Also, this webinar recording will be available on our YouTube channel. Ajiveta is our channel there, so you can also look at YouTube later on. You will also be getting a short survey after the webinar about the feedback for this. So please do help us improve our webinars. Also, from this webinar, you will be getting one SEU against category A, because I am also certified enterprise coach. Against category A, you will be getting your SEU for your CSP application. So let's get started and talk about the trickiest topic probably we always face, that we are working in an agile world, but our appraisals and the assessment mechanisms up to that. Okay. So Ramanathan, yes, I answered your question. We have one SU which is there, but not under category F, under category A, because of Katsuni being a certified enterprise coach. So let's get started and talk about appraisals in an agile world. So when we talk about agility, when we talk about how we work on the agile methods, there is always a dilemma which audience and which the practitioners face. What do we do? So today we are going to be talking about this little agenda that is on your screen now, where you will see, we'll talk about whether agility is only for engineering teams or we go beyond that. We'll quickly revisit the core of agility and what does it contain. And then we will go on to our actual topic, which is the feedback and appraisal. Are they same or are they different? And then we will take forward to talk about also the appraisal process, because these two words, feedback and appraisal, are totally two different words. So we'll talk about both in the context. So now let's go forward and talk about what does agility really mean for, because I have been conducting a lot of agile classes, as some of you know, and so obviously Scrum classes, but what I see is a lot of differentiation in those classes. Probably these days, I mostly find managers and everybody else who has been a part of it, and in some cases executives. Up to 15-20% will also find team members, and in some case people who are on the customer side. But one category of team members or from the organization that are sorely missing is those who are part of the talent acquisition and talent management team, or to simply say HR. Because there is a perception which is there in our world, oh, agility is only about IT and it is only about engineering. What does HR have to do with it? And we simply don't have time to attend to something which is about technical part. But in case I may remind you, when we talk about Agile philosophy or the Agile manifesto, what is this all about? So Agile manifesto, the core of it is all about teams. It's all about people. And when we talk about the manifesto, if you remember the very first part of the manifesto, it says individuals and interactions matter more over people, process and tools. That means when we talk about agility, it is everything to do with people, right? And when we say people, when they work in organizations, they form teams. So at the core of agility, or everything that we talk about agile these days, is nothing but teams. So when we talk about teams, when we talk about people, how can the science and art of human resource management, uh, talent management, talent acquisition, that can be far away. And that's why this topic gains even more prominence when we talk about appraisals, when we talk about feedback, because when people work, they would need some feedback on how to improve. Now let's talk about the current mechanisms on how we operate. In our current world, what are the appraisals, how are the appraisals handled? We focus on only on individual efforts. Oh, I need so many lines of code. I created 2000 test cases. I found 5000 bugs. Okay. So which is more focused on the individual work. Now, during the course of the year, I might have changed probably 3 teams because I might be in different projects. I might have changed multiple managers because my manager moved away or there was a change in the management. But my performance cycle, my feedback cycle is still annual. So only my last manager during my appraisal cycle will ever get to evaluate me and tell me how I have performed. Good. So that means it becomes a challenge both for individuals as well as the managers when it comes to appraisals and feedbacks to be able to assess an individual thoroughly as well as fairly. So that means our current cycles of appraisal, which are annual, they put both the managers as well as the team members who are getting appraised both at a disadvantage. Let me bring back your attention to what we just now discussed a minute before. When we said Agile philosophy is all about teams, in our current appraisal process, do we talk about teams at any point of time? No. We only focus on, oh, this is how you perform, this is your rating out of maybe 10, and this is your hike, or this year we cannot give you a hike or an addition. So this is all that the discussions typically during the annual appraisal cycles are focused on. And yes, we have to fill long feedback forms. Probably if you have filled your annual appraisal form, annual feedback form, you probably have taken, at least I took, at least a week to think about what do I really write. So that my manager gives me a 4 out of 5 or a 4 point out of 5. So more than obviously one part of my performance, but a major part in my appraisal would be also what I filled in my feedback form or my appraisal form, right? So again, we probably go contrary to one of the tenets of agility which says less comprehensive documentation and more working product. Good. So can we really use these tenets when we talk about an appraisal process? Now, by the way, before I go forward from here, just as a gentle reminder, we are, because the topic is short and I'm probably going to deep dive into a topic which is tricky. My narrative would be finishing mostly by another 22 minutes or so. And then I would be leaving the floor open for questions in case you might have any. So we'll be trying to make it a little more interactive. I will also try to open the floor where you can actually, if you're on audio, you can also ask me questions direct rather than putting it in your chat room. So let's go forward. So this was the background basically which I wanted to give before we get started with our discussions about what does feedback and appraisal mean in Agile world. So with that background, I believe we are okay to move forward. So let's talk about the feedback and assessment systems and the feedback and assessment cycles when we talk about an Agile world. Now another myth which I have seen and which the participants in some of my classes bring about, oh, Agile is all about Scrum. So we have daily stand-ups and we have sprints and we have 2-week sprints and so on and so forth. So that's why probably here on this slide I have not used the word sprint but I have used iteration. Now any Agile method we talk about it is iterate, and this is where it gives our opportunity to take more feedback. So feedback about an individual, about a team, the first feedback is gained at a daily level. Whatever we had forecasted, what we wanted to do today, did we achieve it? And in case you are even working on an environment where you're working closely with the product owner, working closely with the stakeholders, you might even get a feedback about the output you produced. That means I completed this task today. I showed it to my manager or product owner or the customer and they gave me feedback. Oh, this does not look good. You did not do it as per what we had agreed to. Okay. Now that is your first feedback. So your first feedback as a team member comes from your daily interactions with your customers, with your stakeholders and with your product owner. Now you can make it formal or you can keep it informal as we typically do. So that is up to you. So that presents your daily improvement opportunity. Then comes the next cycle or the next stage, which is your iteration. So when you complete an iteration, when you complete a sprint, that is your next opportunity to understand and evaluate. Yes, we do, when I talk about Scrum, we do retrospectives. where we evaluate and retrospect as a team how we can be better. That is an opportunity not just for the team to evaluate and see how we can be better, but also for the individual. How I performed in the sprint, what I could have done better. Is there anything that I can learn from my colleagues and peers and use it in the next sprint? So don't just take your iteration and sprint and as a ritual, as a ceremony that you have to follow. Oh, we'll go do sprint retrospectives. Okay, and that's a part of the process. Also use it as an opportunity where you can look at the appraisal, you can look at the feedback from the sprint and how you work and what you can improve. Now, in case your iteration cycle, your sprint cycle is different than your monthly cycle, that means you probably have more sprints in a month rather than just one sprint per month. It might be a good idea if the manager, the lead, uh, the scrum master or the product owner, they also talk to the individual team members and give them a feedback about how they performed based on what they have seen, based on what is the observation from the sprints and so on and so forth. Vice versa, if the team members had been expecting something from the product owners, from the team leads, from the managers, they can also give a feedback back that this is something I was expecting which I did not get. So rather than probably cribbing at the end of the cycle, end of the year, oh, this is something we'll do, you can probably do the same also every month, which gives a fair chance, which gives an opportunity for the team members to improve and make sure they are also aligned to the expectations from the management, from the customers, from the scrum master and the product owner. At the same time, in case we are not sure about moving along with the person, we really see that this is not working out, we may even ask them to shift to a different perspective, different project. So that also eliminates the risk for the project, for the BU significantly. So these monthly feedback and assessment cycles, in fact, are beneficial not just for the individual, they are also beneficial for the organization at a whole, because it gives both the organizations and the individuals to recalibrate and see where we stand. Yes, it becomes, if you really make it so hard, if you make it so formal, it definitely becomes a cumbersome process for the managers. So an idea could be to more take this feedback cycle almost like a daily stand-up, or as probably we have been doing in my company, like a coffee talk. So every maybe what we have been doing in my organization, every end of every month, we have been, each manager has a feedback coffee with their respective results with their respective team members. So they go out for a coffee, they discuss in a very informal about what could have been possibly better, and then it gets kind of formalized in sort of an email or some kind of a dashboard. So if you want to make it an informal, formal approach where you first discuss informally and then formalize it, that also helps. You don't need to really bring out a lot of documentation and forms and give a written proof that I did this appraisal part. So that may not be required, but definitely informal, formal feedback definitely works. And then comes our very famous, very loving annual performance appraisals, where you might have set company level goals, you might have set organization level goals and business unit goals which you want to evaluate at this stage now. Because 1 month be a shorter time period to look after the overall goals. But my thought process would still be, because we are living in a world so dynamic, to still move away from this annual appraisal part and maybe try to do it at least 6 months. Because within 6 months, within a half year, a lot of water passes through the Ganges under the bridge. That means in the business world, a lot of changes happen. In the way we have been working with colleagues, a lot of changes happen. 6 months is actually a good enough time to relook at your company's performance, to relook at your BU's performance, and accordingly also relook at your individual and team performance. So that is one of my recommendations that I have been providing with various customers, and we also try to follow the same at our own organization. So this was about feedback and assessment. But now, what is the difference between the feedback and assessment and when we talk about appraisals? Okay. So just as a quick poll, and just to check whether people are still awake in the in our virtual room, would you like to type out in the chat window what is the difference between feedback and appraisal? Even if you write a couple of lines, that would also be good. In fact, you can, if you answer that question and rightly, you might actually win yourself a goodie. So, if you want to kind of write down your answer in the chat window on the right hand side, do write out what's the difference between a feedback and an appraisal, or feedback and assessment and an appraisal. Would someone like to write it down in the chat window? Whosoever gets it first correctly probably can also win a goodie. I'm going to give you about 1 minute to type your answers. Okay. So we have been getting quite a few responses. So let's see who has got it first. Saurabh says feedback is something which is provided by the peers or manager. Sudha says feedback is maybe two-way. Ramanathan says feedback is mutual and helpful for 360-degree review, but an appraisal is single-sided. It is set to be 360 degrees. Okay. So Ritesh says feedback can be given any point of time. And Nagini says, welcome Nagini. So feedback is a process of letting someone know what's right and what's wrong about something they did. Okay. While an assessment is something done by yourself or manager, that's what Saurabh says. I'm still not getting the right answer. I'm still waiting for the right answer, the difference between feedback and appraisal. Okay. Yes, I think I have got my right answer. So Siva Bharti Muthuraman, he has given the right, so she has given the right answer. So assessment is about measuring performance against set goals, whereas feedback is just an opinion. So I think that is for the closest answer that we have got till now. Good. So yes, so thanks for enlightening us, Siva Bharti, and you would have your video on your way shortly. My team will contact you. So that's the difference. So feedback is about when you want them to give your opinion about what was correct, what was not, and how this can be better. But when we talk about appraisals, I'm not about assessment here, I'm talking about appraisal. So that's the word difference I use. Appraisal is more about when you have set goals and you want the team, the individual to act out against those goals. And what do we include in goals? That is something that we talk about. So traditionally, again, how we have been doing appraisals, as I mentioned at the start of this webinar, has been more focused on individual work, individual performance, individual goals, and so on and so forth. But here, what are we talking about? Here, what we are talking about, team. So in your appraisal cycle, whether it is annual, whether it is half yearly, do give more focus to the team performance. Okay. And like we talk about feedback, and I just now gave you that part also appraise often. Not just focus on an annual appraisal cycle or a 6-month appraisal cycle, but try to appraise maybe a quarter, maybe a half year, as is more feasible, maybe depending on your company size, organization size also. Okay. Also, if I talk, and maybe I probably am very harsh on those words, the matrices, the performance matrices that we have been using to evaluate our team members are mostly dumb matrices, like to call it that way. Or how many lines of code did I write today? How many bugs that you logged in the system? Now the moment you do that, does logging 2000 bugs make any difference to a customer or make any difference to a business? Or you did something which had an impact on how the business performs and how the customers perceive the company. That's something which is more important. So when we talk about performance matrices, both at a team level and an individual level, this is something that you should probably like to look into. How are my performance matrices for my team members, for my teams, related to the customer goals, the organization goals, and the business goals? Just to take an example, rather than talking about the number of lines of code, maybe you should talk about the running tested features. Every sprint, every release, how many features are running and tested. Rather than talking about the deviation from the estimate, do talk about predictability. What you forecasted versus what you were able to deliver. Good? Or when you were able to deliver. So just to give you an example about a couple of these things, right? So there could be many more performance matrices that you can use, but this is just an example that I gave you. And I had in fact done done a webinar earlier, maybe 3-4 months back. You'll find it on our YouTube channel, which again I talked about agile matrices. So in case you want to go through that again, please do feel free. Also, because some of you wrote on the chat window also that feedback and appraisals are mostly one way. But here we are talking about a team. So it is not just about a manager or a director or someone else in the hierarchy assigning the goals. It should be about conversation. Whether the team member is comfortable with those goals, whether they feel confident enough that whatever goals they have been given, they are taking on, they will be able to do justice to it. So rather than doing a one-way talk and one-way street, do converse. Okay, and this conversation, the earlier you do in your appraisal cycle, the better it is, so that it gives them time to understand, gives them time to prepare yourself and set the right pace to reach those goals. Good. Also, there might be, like we have been doing with some of our customers, we do facilitate brainstorming and facilitation sessions where right from the CEO down to the team member, they participate in a single room in a session just facilitated by a known coach, by a well-known or well-entrenched coach, where they discussion about the bridge between how the company goals and the organization goals are linked to the individual goals. Where the executive, the top management talks about how they would like to see the company and where they would like to see the company, and then the team managers, the directors, the team members, they work together between themselves on how they would link it to their individual performance. If I perform one task today on my computer, how does it affect the company's fortune? So we are talking about visibility and traceability at that level. Okay. So the more you connect your appraisals to real-time goals, the more you create visibility for the team members to look into what the company strategy and the company goals are, and vice versa. It creates more and more trust between the management, the customers and the teams. So during your appraisal cycle, it may be an important part that you create this kind of a connect. You would have organization goals, and from the organization goals, like we typically do, we draw our business unit, module and product level goals, and then you might have multiple teams working under this. So this is where we draw the team member goals, the team and the team level goals. In our current appraisals process, what goes missing is this third layer that you see, the orangish layer, which is the team goals. We directly jump from organization and view level goals to the team level goals, sorry, the team member goals. So if you add that one level abstraction which is about team, it gives you direct connect on whether individual can also assess their own performance on what impact do I have on company and vice versa. It gives them a sense of belonging. It also gives them a sense of responsibility and accountability. So this should work both ways. Okay. So, and this should not all be done in cycle. So month number 1 we'll do the organization goals. Month number 2 we'll talk about VO goals. Month number 3 we'll talk about team goals. A preferred way or a more suggested way that as I've always said is to actually bring everyone who is responsible for goal setting at these different levels, bring them all to a single room and then discuss. So that everybody has a chance to give their opinion. Everybody has a chance to in case they do not like something or they are not comfortable with something, to be able to question that. And also everybody at a management level, at a manager level has a chance to assess how much capable my team is or what changes I need to make. So it again becomes a two-way trust mechanism for the team members and the management to connect. So this was the connect that you should create maybe early in the start of your appraisal cycle or even before your appraisal cycle starts. Let's say your appraisal cycle starts in January. You may want to do this exercise in the December of the previous year so that you are able to right away in the right earnest give them the goals. What I have seen working through various organizations, typically this because our management, our team members are too busy to in the releases and deliverables and so on, this almost becomes 2 to 3 month cycle. 4 months into the appraisal cycle before you are able to give those KPIs and targets to the team members. And that creates definitely a disconnect. So it is an important part that we also time this well. And breaking down these goals into smaller chunks, this obviously takes time. So managers, the team members, they should find out time from their daily routine, from their sprint routine to be able to think about this. What we tend to do typically is we do our appraisals like exams. Only when we are closer to the cycle or the deadline, we wake up and say, okay, now let's do it. So that is something which is very, very important. Now, coming to the last part of our discussion about today. When we talk about appraisals, we also talk about goals, right? So how do we set out about goals? Because typically in our current situations, we have individual goals where we talk about, as I said earlier also, percentage of improvement, percentage deviation from estimate and so on. But here, in an agile world, my recommendation would be, again, this is my recommendation, there could be different ways, have a majority of your goals assigned to the team performance. So if, so 50 to 70% weightage is given to the team performance. And let's talk about Scrum. So who would look into the team performance? Obviously the product owner, because product owner is looking after the return on investment and scope budget time. So the product owner works with the team, the development team, to set up the goals. And this is also communicated to the manager of the team that these are the goals that have been set. And towards the appraisal cycle, or maybe every month, the manager and the product owner work together to understand where the team was with respect to the goals. Another 20 to 30%, this is what, this may take about 50 to 70% weightage from what you want to give to the team. Another 20 to 30%, obviously, because we are talking about a team, goes to fear feedback, or our very famous, as we call it, 360-degree feedback, where the team members appraise each other on their working skills, work ethics, the power of collaboration, and so on and so forth. And the next 20% will mostly focus on your individual performance. How many patents that you created, right? How many bugs you are really able to find? Did I gain any new certifications? Did I earn a customer appreciation? So that's probably the rest of the 20 to 30%. Again, this pie chart that you see is not fixed. When the organizations typically start working this kind of model, they will start with the 50%, 50 to 40% goals. But eventually, because the team is paramount, they move more focus to the team performance level. So, but if you give a more weightage to the team, it also gives them a sense of belonging, that it is not only about my individual performance. If my team does not perform well, I will also not get my appraisal. So it is very, very important that you imbibe the team values in your team members. We set up and give more weightage to the team goals. Good. Now another myth which has been created, which I want to set here, because Agile team, typically Agile or Scrum teams are uh, self-managed and self-organized. So can the manager then observe? See, one thing that we need to understand here, the Agile teams or the Scrum teams do not work in isolation. Okay, they create as much visibility for everyone in the organization to be able to see how they are performing. Okay, that visibility is what gives them trust. So this visibility is something that should be very, very available, very visible to the manager also. So that anytime the manager needs to understand where the team is and the individual team members are, he has a complete view of what is happening. Okay, it's not we are hiding under the carpet or inside a room. No, do not see us. So that is something that that a manager also is appraising the team can also do. So once this has been done, you may still run your weekly, monthly or annual cycles where you set up these goals, you give the team member these goals and then work together. But again, just to repeat what I said earlier, it is important to reiterate that the team is paramount. It is important to reiterate that you are not just dependent on your own performance but on everybody else's. And the last part, give the feedback often, not just do it after 1 year when a lot of water has passed through the bridge. Okay. So I think with this I would probably go a little silent now and try to understand from all of you what your questions would be and try to answer as many questions in the short time that we have available. So let me go to our first question for now. So first question comes from Vivek. So Vivek says, who is the right person to evaluate the individual performance in a Scrum world, the product owner or the Scrum Master? So Vivek, the short and quick answer is none. The product owner and the Scrum Master are not the right people to judge the performance in an individual. The reason being, the moment the product owner scrum master take up this role, the team members will feel uncomfortable to talk to them with an open heart about the problems that they face if they have not been able to do something. So typically, as per the Scrum Guide also, this is a role which has been taken up by somebody outside of the Scrum team, which may be a team lead, which may be a manager, which may be a line manager, whatever your organization hierarchy says, but not the product owner or the Scrum Master. Okay, and how will they evaluate? So the product owner, the manager might work with the product to understand whether the team goals were met. The manager might talk to the individual team members to understand how the peer performance was, and they may talk to the individual to judge their individual performance. Okay, we have our next question from Vishal, which I answered earlier also. You will get one SU from this webinar, Vishal. That's the question. Okay, good question, Meenakshi. So I think the first to start, the question that Meenakshi has asked here is, the companies like Accenture are no longer using annual appraisals. How are they evaluating the teams then? Now, the first company to start this trend was Atos Origin in the IT world. And even before that, we had Mr. Richard Branson, the Virgin Group chairman, where they do not do annual appraisals. See, that's where the difference I said about the appraisal and the feedback. Because we are talking about an agile world, you don't want to wait for 1 year to provide a feedback and assessment about an individual or a team. So the cycles of these companies, large company Accenture and so on, they have been now broken down more into quarterly or 6 monthly cycles, where the goals are set, they are reviewed, and the performance is also evaluated in those smaller cycles. Okay. So next question is from Kathiresan. Will team matrices play any role in the appraisal? Definitely yes. Because if you saw that little pie chart on the last slide that I played, a major portion of your or the weightage of your goal should be on team, whether the team performed. So for example, together we were able to deliver about 35 features in this week, or we improved by 20% in last 3 months. So this will definitely be playing a role into the appraisal cycle. Now the next concern comes from yes. So Shantanu has a very valid concern to highlight now. See, because we put a lot of focus on team performance and team assessment, and the question would be, because in that case, the product owner would, whatever product owner says, the team would be agreeing to anything and everything that the product owner says to. So this is where I said the product owner has a part to play in the setting up the team goals and so on and so forth. If you remember, I said converse. This is not just a one-way street where the product owner assigns the goal. This is not a one-way street where the manager is only dependent on the feedback from the product owner. Okay, so because product owner and the development team are at almost at a peer level, both of them are stakeholders into the development of a product or a delivery. There should be a discussion and there should be an agreement about what are the reasonable goals that the team can work upon. It can never be a one-way street. And in fact, this is exactly what Agile philosophy talks about in principle number 7. The sponsors, developers and users should be able to maintain a constant pace. So that means the conversation is important, where the manager might be there, where the product owner might be there, and then they work together to identify these goals. Okay. Now, the question that Rajesh asks here is, the team itself is self-organized, focused, transparent and communicative. However, what if a particular team member does not have such characteristics? So I'll take a metaphor here, Rajesh. Typically, as we grow as kids, as we go into teenagers and we become more adults, what is expectation from us? That we will mature, we will slowly understand what the word means, and we will behave according to the right norms of the society. Is it correct? But you will probably see not everybody gets to understand this right from day one, right from they get into their teenage. And some of us probably go on a different path. Some of the teenagers choose the wrong path. So what do we use there? First, the parents would try to talk to them about and make them understand what is right and what is not. Or there will be kind of a censor, you kind of scold them. And if that still does not work, there may be a punishment. Good. Now that real life part also applies in a team. Ideally, as you rightly said, we would like the team to be self-organized, transparent, communicative. But there can always be certain team members who may not go with the norm. So then it comes to the Scrum Master to understand and work with the team on why they are not able to align with the team. Is there something that they want different? Maybe they are not the right fit in the project. Okay, so this is something that we need to understand. Uh, and then work accordingly. So it is not always that the Scrum Master are goody-goody. There will always be a reward and recognition. There will always be a punishment. There will always be a change that might be required. Good. Next question comes from Ramanathan. How can the team performance be justified to the management? Now, if you remember, I had talked about this earlier also because if you remember, we talked about a bridge session, right? Where when we were talking about the business goals and strategy goals, the team also gets to know what are the business goals and the strategy goals. Typically, if I talk about, let's say, 10,000 people organization, will the CEO ever have time to look into the performance of all the 10,000 team members? Most probably not. Yes, they may look at probably the 20 teams that they have got and evaluate at a business unit level how their teams are performing. So even now we are doing exactly the same. We are not doing anything different. Okay. Yes. By using that weighted system, you can still justify team performance versus individual performance, because ultimately, if only the code is done, it does not make any sense to the customer. Testing is also important. If only architecture is done, but the code is not delivered in time to the customer, it still does not work with the customer. So ultimately, the business and the individual performance connect has to be there, which is something we have been sorely missing these days. Okay. Foundation. So that's the in fact that exactly links to the next question which Nagini has asked. That foundations under this transformation, how will the performance matrices be established? Now this is something that I want to say here. See, when I gave you this mechanism, is it just related to agile teams? When we talk about team performance, right? Is only an agile team performing? No, they are not. So you can apply this weightage that I talked about. You can apply the mechanisms I talk about to any team. Okay, where you have to give preference, you have to take the team into conference. They may be working waterfall, they may be working in any methodology. Okay, but it's about talking to the team, working with them together. It's about getting the output together as a team. So that's something that we have been talking about. Okay? And that's only difference we are talking about here. Ritesh, so there's a little bit on the tangent question, but I'll try to be answering it here. So what could be the goal of Scrum Master? Yes, though when we talk about the appraisal of a Scrum Master, in fact I get asked this question multiple times during my classes also. See, the example that I always give here is that of our favorite captain pool, Mr. MS Dhoni. Correct? So, uh, if you see what is the captain's performance level, is it just about his own performance or her own performance, or is it also about motivating and guiding the team to success? There is a reason why Mr. Dhoni has become the highest paid sports person in India, because he has been instrumental in getting the team to success. Correct? So the Scrum Master's goal cannot be differentiated from the team's goals. So when the team succeeds, the Scrum Master succeeds. So when you set up the goal of the Scrum Master, you would obviously be setting their individual goals, but you're also looking at, maybe we had less attrition in the team. Maybe we had 20% improvement in the efficiency of the team. So we talk about those kind of matrices for a Scrum Master. Yes, Minak. So then comes the next question from Minakshi. Since we are putting a lot of weightage on the team performance, there are always some people who don't put in more effort. Will they not get benefited with this? Now this is where I talked about the peer performance as well as the individual performance. So you are not giving everything away on the team part, because you are talking about a peer performance also, because we are talking about an individual performance also. Okay, so they will be gaining something because being part of the team, but will they gain everything which probably a top performer will gain? No. So some sort of bell curve you must still be able to maintain, and that exactly links into Shantanu's next question, right? Like Meenakshi, you talked about a low performer, you might also have a high performer. Good. This is where the other two weightages I talked about, the individual performance as well as the peer performance comes into picture, right? That's what would be the differentiator with people who are on the bottom of the curve versus people who are on the top of the curve. So you can definitely create a differentiator there also. Uh, so next question comes from Madhusudan. Uh, what if QA is completing the task within deadlines, but dev and how we can assess team performance? It happened practically in my team. So recently all the test cases designed, but dev could not deliver a single story till the last day of the sprint. Okay, so that's exactly what I mentioned earlier also, because you will be able to differentiate between that peer performance and the other weightages. Yes, if you want to keep it 50, 25, 25, that is up to you. So based on how your team's culture and environment is, you may even vary those cycles. Like Nagini also mentioned, when we start with a waterfall kind of mechanism, the amount of weightage you put to team performance might be a little lesser. Okay. And then the other part could be focused on the individual and the peer performance. So in fact, this kind of appraisal and feedback mechanism also gets you a chance to correct the team culture slowly. Good. So that also you might want to use. Now I'll go to the next question from Anjana because about 4 minutes to close. She says, can some inputs from the sprint retrospective meeting be considered for individual performance feedback? I would say to a little extent yes, Anjana, because our retrospective meeting is a meeting where we are also talking about how we can improve and what we could do better. So this is where some of the pointers could lie for the team to take forward. Okay. Next question comes from Nagini, where she talks about how about the SME and shared services teams, where they would be working with various teams at any given time. You are absolutely right. And this is where I think the weightages might vary. This is where you are, because let's say we are talking about an infrastructure guy, he might be working with 5 different teams or 5 different managers or 5 different uh, account holders. So in this case, you would need to again tweak this model, because again what we are talking about is maybe we are not about a team here, again we have gone to the individual level. Now because a team does not exist, would the team performance or the weightage to team performance would exist? Maybe not. Okay, so this is something that we'll have to look into, that because the whole mechanism I talked about is based on the team performance. Okay? So this is something that we need to work upon, that when our SME teams or shared services are teams, are we able to also set certain goals for them? For example, when I talk about support and maintenance teams, they also have certain SLAs that they need to maintain. They might work with 5 different business units. They might also have certain SLAs to maintain. So those become their team goals. Were we able to maintain SLAs? Did we get any customer feedback? Were we able to reduce the ticket size? So even those becomes your goals. Yes, so the next question and the last questions come from Kathuria. Is there any organization doing appraisal like this from other traditional ways? So Kathuria, yes, absolutely. At least 8 to 9 organizations that I have personally been working with, they have already started moving to this kind of organization. So I am talking about a very large telecom company which is from Israel. I am talking about a Wall Street based company which they are with the development centers in India. So we have been working in various with various customers of various sizes have started moving towards that. Now the question comes from Suresh, where it talks about refactoring. So Suresh, I'm not sure that is related to the topic of webinar, or the refactoring could be used in multiple contexts. So in fact, if you like to ask this question, we can probably take that on a tangent. Good. So Shantanu has the next question. If we have two teams, one is very high visibility, high stakes, and one which does routine work, would one team not crave that we didn't get enough good work and the team to do? So this is something which is true even now. Okay. So when we set up those team goals, when we set up those team appraisals, they have to be relevant to the work that they have been doing and not judging everybody by the same yardstick. That is something which is very, very important to understand. Our current appraisal systems or current exam systems are based on judging everybody by the same yardstick, whether it is at our education level, kids level, or in our IT cycles in our companies. Okay, so that's why, if I remember, I did not talk about giving goals, I talked about conversing about goals. Good. So that is an important cultural shift that we need to make, that we do not judge every team on the same yardstick. Good. So, Sudha, I did repeat it, Sudha, to listen to this. Sudha's question is, what factors we should be considering when evaluating Scrum Master? I did repeat it, I'll quickly repeat it, but it will be available in the recording also. When you look at Scrum Master, it has to be about how the team improved. Did we reduce our attrition? Did the team's efficiency and productivity increase? Okay. Did we focus on, for example, more impactful features? So all these, did the quality of the team increase? These all could be some of the parameters or factors which you can judge the team on. Now, next question from Murali Keswan is that in the team all are performed under the software as per requirement. How to fit for the man to the bell curve approach? See, as I said, when you have created weightages for different parts, you will always be able to create a differentiator between individual and the peer feedback that we talked about. Okay, and this is where the differentiator is. Or you might want to take it, so like again how our cricket teams and sports teams get awarded. When, let's say, the cricket team of India wins the World Cup, they're awarded, let's say, 1 crore rupees. Okay, now how does this reward get divided? If every team member has performed equally, it goes equally to every team member. So this is where we slightly do differentiate from the bell curve that we have been talking about. Good. Ultimately, the total KT of the team still remains the same. That is not changing. So this is something we need to teach the manager. If everybody has performed equally, the team has been super, they should also be sharing that KT equally. Okay. So the last two questions I'm taking from Srivati and Amir. Amir joins us from Nepal. See, top performer creating value to customer may be rated low by the team as part of the peer feedback. So this is where, as I said, when we talk about a top performer, are we not talking about a team cohesiveness? We also talk about individual. If there's a top performer really, but he's not gelling along with the team, I am my own guru, I am the super guy, right? But that does not help the team member. Ultimately, it pulls on the team performance, and that's something you have to guard against. At the same time, is this guy winning any customer appreciations? Is this something that is code or the quality is really visible? So that becomes part of the individual appraisal. Okay, so that is something that you should be able to balance out once you create those values and look at the team culture. Last question comes from Amirji, and in fact 2 questions more have come from Sanjeev and Shantanu. I'll see if I can take it up. How can we balance the competition mindset of individual and Scrum team? So Amirji, I think I'm going back to our part about when we talk about the team performance. Yes, we do encourage a healthy competition between team members, but the ultimate goal is we need to win as a team. If you are doing super and your team is not performing, I still remember a long back, there was a match played between India and England, where we had a gentleman named Mr. Manoj Prabhakar who was batting. Now the Indian team required a high run rate from Musfara's batting to be able to win that match. But Mr. Prabhakar got busy with completing a century, right? And that's where India lost the match. Now, would you consider this guy who scored a century but the team lost? Vice versa. So this is something that we have to work with the team. That yes, you will get to win the competition if you have a good relation with your peers. You will get relation if you create really good patented technique. If you really get a customer appreciation. So that is part of your 30-40%. But your majority is still about team. If your team does not win, you will also not. Okay. So last 2 questions. Amirji, I have answered this question about your Scrum team matrices. Earlier in this webinar also, you may also want to look at our earlier webinar about Agile matrices, which is details about matrices. Okay. So next question from Shantanu comes in, because Agile talks about change, our team goals may also be keep on changing. That's why I said maybe your annual cycle is not the right cycle, because you have undergone a lot of changes. So we will move it to a quarterly or a half yearly cycle, whatever the size of your own action permits. That also keeps team members happy, because then also I worked good and I got a reward for it, or I got a stick for it also. So that is something which is beneficial both for the team members as well as with the organizations. So last question I'm taking from this webinar, and we'll probably close the questions and the webinar. In the unlikely possibility of a team member working both in Agile and non-Agile projects, how does the appraisals get addressed? So Sanjeev, what we need to answer that question, I think I'll answer it in 2 parts. One part that Scrum talks about is one team member is 100% dedicated to only one team. If you really want a cohesive team which is really efficient, that's what we are looking for. So that means the basic concept where you divide team as 55% here and 45% here creates a flaw in the system. That's one. Okay. Second, just in case you do have that situation where team members might be working with different teams, you should be able to still find certain performance levels that you expect from your team. Like I answered Nagini's question earlier about SLAs and so on and so forth. If you still don't have an option, you may still want to go traditional ways and seek the goals from these different product owners to different product owners and see if they have contributed to a part of it. So I think that's about the only answer I would be able to provide to this question. But obviously, if you would like to write to me, we can obviously discuss more. Now, as the last part of this webinar, what I'm going to do is I'm going to again open the floor for next 1 minute and ask you about the next question, next topics you would like to hear in a webinar. So please do feel free to write in next 1 minute before I close so that we can bring you more and more webinars from our team of experts and coaches where you can listen to more topics that probably trouble you every day or more challenges that you want to get solved. So please do put it in the chat window in the question box so that we are able to bring in those webinars and those knowledge sharing sessions to the team. Right? So I'm going to leave the open floor for 1 minute. As I said, the recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel, Agile YouTube channel. And in case you want to contact us for more details and you want to know more about or you want to implement some of these things in your organization also, please feel free to connect to us on the email IDs that you see on this webinar and also on our website www.agiveta.com and info@agiveta.com. So with this, I would say adios and bye-bye. I hope you had a good learning, and till we meet again, thank you very much. I hope to see you soon again.